Y'all ready for your history?
Get started.
Welcome.
Hi.
Hello, everyone.
To the Pro Audio Suite, thanks to Rode Microphones.
These guys are professional. They're motivated.
Introducing Robert Marshall from Source Elements and Someone Audio Post, Chicago. Darren Robbo Robertson from Voodoo Radio Imaging, Sydney. Tech to the VO stars, George the Tech Whittam from LA. And me, Andrew Peters, voiceover talent and home studio guy.
Line up, ladies!
Here we go.
Welcome to another Pro Audio Suite. This week we're talking marketing, and if you're a first-time listener, it's working already. Our special guest is Brad Newman, who has a company called Upper Level CRM. Welcome to the show, Brad.
Hey, man. Thanks so much for having me. We're talking about marketing. I thought we were talking about tech. Am I on the right show?
We're talking about both.
We're going to do both. Okay, great.
So give us a bit of background for anyone that doesn't know you. What is your background, and what do you currently do with Upper Level?
So, physics of sound and light is what I'm trained in. I'm a voice guy for 26 years. I own an audio post studio and a software company. And the software company has two sides. We do the CRM, which was originally what we founded the software company for. And somebody graciously messed up on the hosting side of things about 4 years ago. And I had several talent that said, hey, can you fix this? So somehow along the way, a couple of thousand clients later on the hosting side, I looked at my staff and I'm like, I guess we're doing hosting. So that's kind of my 26-year career in a nutshell.
Wow, that was so fast.
It was. Yeah.
We can make it longer. Don't worry.
Do you do legal? Is that the main voice work that you do?
No, not at all.
So you do wear quite a few different hats. So what's your main focus?
I focus on recurring work. I focus on building relationships instead of jobs in all that I do, whether it's the hosting, whether it's the CRM, whatever it is. It's like build a relationship and people will pay you if you make their life easier. Like that's it. Like find out what their pain point is, find out what their problem is, make their life easier, remove all these obstacles that make things difficult, and they will pay you more. They will throw money in your lap if you just make the problems go away. So to me, it becomes about customer service, not necessarily that you have the ingredients to make the pie. It's that the pie that you're going to make is going to be amateurish compared to the pie that I make. And not only that, but I remove all the headaches and the time that you're going to waste in that process. Because what I can do in an hour is going to take you 10. You want to do it. But and so you build up enough business with enough good clients. And so, no, I don't have a concern with it at all because I end up, I don't know if this is just luck or it's really service. I don't think it's luck. The attrition rate on everything I do is ridiculously low. So for the hosting and the CRM, 5 years in business, not one customer has left. We're at zero, no attrition. And it's, the only people, if they exit, are going to be people that, don't do VO anymore or so they don't need the website. But if you give people what they want, they will totally pay you for it. And case in point, with George, and I don't know if I'm allowed to talk about all that per se, but he was going to do something, and there was a way that it could be
confidential. Okay. Don't tell anybody anything about my business,
cool.
What I do for a living, or how I do it. Thank you very much. No, please proceed, Brad.
So there was a way that he could have had, like his email and stuff sorted that like would have been free, and from Google. You think Google would know what they're doing, and they just turned it into a disaster. So it's a service that we do as far as migrating mail, and we only charge people for it if they want it. But the way we do it, like we created the workflow, and the way that we do it, it's not only near automatic, but it's flawless. And so, George is like, dude, if you can make this headache go away, no problem. And, boom, the headache was gone.
Absolutely. Dude, I'm using Google products and I'm using Squarespace and Hover. These are three very, very well-respected service providers in the States here for these tools, right? But nobody could fix the problem I was running against. So I needed that guy. I needed the cleaner. And that was Brad. Yeah. And he took care of it. They just want
to point fingers instead of, solving the problem. And Robert, I'm sure you've seen this too. Like, so you have this amazing product that I've used for so long. I don't know what I would have done without Source Connect coming on when it did. Because when I moved, again, it was fiber. And it's like, well, I moved because of my spouse's job moved at the time and I had to move. And I don't know when you guys started selling it. I want to say like 2005 is maybe the earliest I heard of it. But April 06, here I am and I picked this up and it really filled this void that I needed. But I'm sure you see that. You have to support this for all of your clients. And I hear great things about it. Like, oh, they just remoted right in and they clicked the buttons and they fixed this. And I'm like, there is value in somebody that can just nail it and get it done, especially at a service level. When so many other companies, they level one guys reading from a script, and all it's just a farm of dealing with the calls and pacifying people instead of solving the problem. And if you can solve the problem, then your day is smoother. The people don't continue to call, like, it works, and you just move on. And I just don't get why companies don't do that.
It also doesn't become a PR problem.
Right. No, it becomes a PR positive, which I don't advertise,
a PR positive.
Right. I don't advertise upper level hosting. I don't advertise upper level CRM, maybe beyond, talking with you guys or something like this, but nobody listens to this podcast, so it doesn't matter. But
hang on, our mums listen. Be fair.
Yeah. Wow.
I was waiting. I was waiting for the delayed laugh. I'm glad you guys can take the jab of the humor. But it's the same thing. Our clients literally will go on a Facebook group and they sell our businesses for us because they're like, I emailed Brad in 5 minutes, like literally 5 minutes. He did this and this and this. And I love that I get the credit for it because I'm the only person that talks to my clients, but I have a staff of 25 people, but I'm the only one that's going to pick up the phone. I will tell you a little secret that some of my staff emails me, but if I'm talking to somebody, it's me. But we solve a lot of problems and we make it go easy. And if you do that, it's that PR positive. Facebook groups day in, day out.
I completely
it becomes
agree.
A chain. Brad did this.
Find a pain point.
Yeah. One person will do a thing and say that, Brad did this, and that's nice in and of itself. But it's what is really humbling is when 50 or 60 other people chime in on that just to say, praises as well. And it's like they don't have to do that. So the fact that they comment is just astounding. When you find love within the people that have your product, that's just. You can't ask for more.
I'm having issues with my MySpace account. I don't know whether you can help me with that.
Yeah, sure. Absolutely. I'll Google how to delete that for you. What I think we can really do, Tom? If you're on a Windows machine, we can go into your hosts file and we can block the IP address for MySpace and you won't see it. So you'll think the problem is solved. I'm sure there's an equivalent to that on a Mac, but everybody else will still know it's there. But we'll tell you we deleted it.
Well, I think that's his problem, though, is that MySpace have stopped supporting Commodore 64 protocols.
Damn.
Yeah.
Now, speaking of computers and stuff, you're using Windows.
I am. I'm Windows all the way because I don't want to pay the Mac tax.
The hardware tax mainly?
I think you pay the tax in different ways, Brad. There's different ways to pay a tax. You can either... I think there's different taxes. I think when you are... Okay. Some people will buy a Mercedes and some people will buy a 78 Chevelle, customize it, hot rod it. It'll be faster and handle better than the Mercedes. And that's why I think there's two different markets out there and two different needs. So I think if you have the skill set that you have and the familiarity you have with Windows and the ability to get out of the system what you want to get out of it, Windows is going to win hands down because of the infinite flexibility, customization, ability to build whatever you want and everything. And then for everybody else who shrieks in fear of the idea of having to do all those things or, a lot of the other things that come with it, then for them, maybe there's Mac.
Yeah.
No, and I get it. That's, and that's valid. Like I said, there is value in paying for something that removes a pain point. It's just tech is not a pain point for me. And I can, build a machine in 2008 that I'm still running today that's faster than, some of the newest Macs I can still buy off the shelf. And the only issue is it didn't have USB-C. It's like, well, it's a PCI card. I can drop that in and go.
But it's also faster than some of the newest Windows machines you can buy off the shelf.
Yeah, well, definitely. That's a true statement. But I mean, people, I'm talking even maybe aside from maybe the newest Macs that are running like an M1 drive, instead of a traditional SSD or something. But again, that's something that can be, relatively snapped into a machine. You swap out a motherboard and move on. But a lot of people are just not that savvy. I like building it and knowing what's in the recipe because then I know how to fix it. And that's really, what's key for me. I like to learn. I like to teach myself because I don't want to have to pay somebody else. But I thirst on that knowledge. It really makes me happy. But then I know exactly what's in there. So if something goes wrong, I know every little thing all along the way, and that allows you to be able to do more before it's really even publicly available. Way off the topic of computers, but an example of that is I took a lead acid battery and I put it in a gun case and all of the parts from Radio Shack when they were still in business. So this would have been probably, I would say, 7 or 8 years ago, likely. But I made my own off-the-shelf parts, an inverter, so I could have USB, I could have 12 volt, I could have 110. I made my own, portable pack, and you could get all the USB packs, but I couldn't power my laptop on the flight to Paris and have enough power to make it from like Texas to Paris at the time. And so I'm like, great, for $85, I was able to make it. And you literally couldn't buy it off the shelf at that time. Now you can, but there's still more than $85.
How'd you get an ammo case on the airplane, Brad? Come on, man.
It's plastic. So because I used all off-the-shelf parts, I had all the material safety data sheets. And I literally went into the airport with the sheets and showed them what it was. And then I got because it's all off-the-shelf parts, and the TSA already on their website lists all of those parts as airline approved. Because it's just a connection of those parts, it therefore then is TSA certified, and they let you bring it right on the plane.
That's awesome.
I'm sure I'm going to regret asking this question, but then tell us about this PC you built in 2009 then that's still stomping ass.
Sure. So it's a Asus P8 it was a P8Z 68 Pro. I think it was an M, but the Z model lets you overclock the chip. It lets you run a K. So it's got an Intel i7 2600K chip, so you can overclock it. And the Asus BIOS also lets you overclock it, of which I still haven't had to do to date. The only upgrade I've made on it is I swapped out the original hard drive that I had for a terabyte SSD Samsung drive. I used G-Skill RAM in it, and it smokes. I mean, you can run any benchmark performance test you want, and there's just zero delay or lag or latency to it whatsoever. It just chews through anything I give it. I can do audio and video and screen cap all at the same time.
I think what that says is that there hasn't been that much progress in chip development from Intel in the last 10 years, which is a true statement.
You definitely hit the mark on the head right there. So the motherboard that I bought, and I can't take all the credit, I spec'd it all out and I built a machine. But, George topped in that it's hard enough to keep up with one particular brand and all the specs and stuff like that. So I utilize another resource like Anantech, where you go onto the forum and be like, hey, I'm going to build this. And literally 13-year-old kids that do nothing but research everything else made 2 or 3 upgrades. They're like, oh, you might want to go with this particular... With Sandy Bridge was the chipset, because there's going to be one more processor in that line. So later on, you could actually even upgrade the chip. And I'm like, oh, good point. I didn't catch that. So they made 2 or 3 recommendations. It kept the same RAM, but they went without the heatsink on it because the teeth added another 1/4 inch. And that 1/4 inch was going to hit the Cooler Master heatsink unit that was going to go on top and cool this thing, because the actual heat sink and fan on it is got to be a good 7 or 8 inches tall. Like, it's got a massive heat sink on it to keep everything cool. But they made 1 or 2 tips, so use those resources that are out there and take people's feedback. But yeah, no, it's a great machine, and it still just churns through it.
Did you include a limited slip differential with it?
Yeah, I thought that would have been a good thing, because I didn't want one wheel to spin out while the other one was stuck. When you try to torque it and hold the brake, that could be a problem. But But no, I didn't need that.
know,
I decided to go with all-wheel drive in the chassis, and then what I did is I took that, and way before Tesla had a computer in their car, I mounted my old 8088 and Google Maps on a SD card. And
When I was building my computer, I had a bit of trouble getting the whatchamacallit to link up to the what's-a-doozy.
mm-hmm. Yeah,
So,
yeah.
that was tough
that
too.
probably threw a ID10T error for sure.
Yeah, possibly.
Well, I mean, I built a PC many years ago. It was a Pentium 4 in a rack case, and that thing was in service at Steve Nafshin's Bridge out of here as an Audio TX machine until it was pulled out of service 2 years ago. A Pentium 4 rack mount PC that I built in like 1999.
Well, you're right. There hasn't been a lot of chip development from Intel. And they, in fact, the rumor mill is, and I haven't read the latest on it or whatever, that they're going to outsource their chip design because AMD has made so much progress and is crushing them. So if the next machine I look at will likely, if I'm going to build another one, will have an AMD chip in it. But I think the story was relating that if Intel kept doing their own chip design internally, it would take them 20 years to catch AMD. And meanwhile, AMD is still going to be advancing. So, rumor is Intel's going to outsource their chip design. So that's going to be interesting.
Wow. Holy crap. The chip design company's getting someone else to design their chips for them. That's bizarre, isn't it?
Right, for sure.
I think it also speaks to the point of purpose-built computers and matching the amount of power that's necessary. The reality is that most people in the world are sitting on way more processing power than they need, even in their cell phone to some degree, but definitely a lot of them in their laptop computers. And it's like watching Netflix and writing Word documents and emails. And even Source Connect doesn't need, for 90% of the people, they are overpowered on their desktop computer, I'd say for sure. Mm-hmm. And so, where's the new markets?
The first Source Connect bridging kits we made for Nafshin out of here were PowerBook G4s, the little 12-inch
G4s, yeah.
And they ran it beautifully. And that was a pretty anemic processor compared to anything from Intel.
I've worked at companies that have a phone system that they're super invested in, and the phone system's the size of a closet. And then 10 years later, you're like, oh, I can put that whole phone system in a Optiplex 280G Pentium 4 computer. And then 10 years after that,
and now it runs
both
on a
those
Raspberry
systems
Pi.
are still, now the whole thing's in a Raspberry Pi, but I'm not even doing that because both those other systems are still running. The Pentium 4 and the thing that's the size of a closet.
Right.
It's like, it works. It does its job. It's done.
And that's why a lot of the ATM machines are still running Windows XP, though they don't want to admit it.
Windows XP?
Oh, really? For sure.
Is that right?
You've never,
Really?
Yes.
You've never walked by an ATM machine and saw a Windows XP logo moving around on it because it threw an error? Oh, for sure.
Yeah.
Absolutely all the time.
That's hilarious.
Yeah.
It was a big security issue because they end-of-lifed XP, and those things are just all of a sudden floating out there in the security universe.
Yep.
That's a fun little tidbit that people don't
Meanwhile,
know.
all the hackers have just shut down this podcast and jumped onto their terminals.
Yeah.
Hey, wait. Your mom's a hacker?
Yeah, my mum's a hacker.
Yeah.
She is.
I mean, the reality is you don't need to find a flaw in Windows XP to get money out of an ATM machine. I mean, skimming is a whole lot easier.
Brad, I wanted to ask you to steer the direction a different way. Why do people not get your freaking emails? I don't mean you specifically. Why do people just never see email half the damn time? When it comes seemingly from me, why don't they see it? And what have you done to deal with that problem?
That's a good point because we are supposed to be talking about marketing and I forgot. So people are sold on products because they're pretty shiny lights and features. And with all due respect to the consumers, that's all they know. Like they're going to say, oh, well, this does this. And they don't, know if they need that. They don't know if that's actually going to help, but it looks good or looks better than the product it sits next to that doesn't do that. And the proof of it is, when you look side by side and they'll say, well, our product versus theirs, and the one on the right always has more checks, so it must be better. So the reason that emails will go to spam there are a plethora of things. People are using the wrong products, first of all. They're being sold a bill of goods, and that's my point to it. But when you use a product that bulk sends mail, they want to make sure that you don't have to think, and they can build a simpler product. So if you don't have to input settings, they're just going to send the mail maybe out of their mail server, right? So you sign up for the product, you put together the stuff, you click send, and it's going to all go out of their particular server. Well, when the company gets known for that, then hosting companies like my Upper Level Hosting or Google will be familiar with what those server addresses are. So we immediately route anything from those server addresses or from ultimately the range of IPs to the spam folder or to the promotions tab inside of Google, or even into the junk mail inside of Gmail, Google
Promotions,
Workspace, whatever
updates,
Google product you're using.
Yeah, all those
exactly.
folders.
Right. Yep, everything's going to get filed, and then to couple that, they use the other users that don't want it that might report it as spam. And what people don't realize is they think one individual is going to make a decision on what is spam or is not. Now, there's one individual can make better choices to make their stuff not spam. And I realize I'm talking generic, but I'll get to the meat of it here in a second. But when you're dealing with something that is going to be classified as spam, there are RBLs, which are real-time blacklists, that entire other companies, all these hosting companies kind of talk together, and there's this honeypot, and everything kind of gets reported. So if I notice something is spam, then that goes into basically this database that is slurped up or sucked down by all these other hosting companies, and we share information so we can help other users not get scammed by somebody's fraudulent, Amazon scheme or PayPal scheme. But when you're sending your mail through a third-party mail client like Apple Mail or Outlook or Gmail on your phone, there are keys that authenticate that mail. Then that mail is from you, and the header information details that it's from you. So the bunch of little text stuff goes in it. I'm trying to keep it simple for people that listen. But ultimately, that gets authenticated and it gets delivered. When you use most other providers, again, they want to make it so simple where you sign up and just shove it out. They just want to sell you on the fact that you're able to email 10,000 people. They don't want to tell you that only maybe 20% of that is actually going to be seen and the rest of it's just all junk. It may even get rejected from the server altogether because servers will have gray listing on it. So a server will take a mail that it is not sure is legitimate or not and actually kick it back and say that this box doesn't exist. A real mail server will retry like every 4 hours over the course of 4 days and go, no, this is legitimate mail, send it back. And basically, they push the mail back and forth like a hockey puck, having a conversation until the receiving server says, every time I push it to you, you're giving it back to me, so this must be legit. But when you use these other products that push mail out, the minute that server kicks it to them, it just goes into the ether. It's gone. They don't ever try to relay it or resend it or anything else. So they're not deliverable. It's marked as spam. It's coming from the wrong server addresses. Basically, the servers all know it's not coming from you, even though they've sold you that bill of goods. And so your mail doesn't get seen. So you need to fix that. And you would fix that by having the mail that you send actually come from you, having the SPF record, the DKIM, and the DMARC all in place, having everything authenticate, and having it come from you, sending one mail at a time to that person from you. A lot of people will get that when they're using these programs, they'll see, inside of Gmail, it'll say on behalf of, and then have their name, and it'll have 2 addresses, and that means the header information is incorrect, that somebody is sending this on behalf of this person, but it's not really that person. It's like going to see a movie and realizing the fake Tom Cruise is in it, so it's not quite as good. Or maybe the movie that Tom Cruise is in isn't that good at all either. But if you can authenticate all that and the users get what they want, and it'll pass through. So we spent a lot of time in making our particular platform for Upper Level CRM. We built an online SaaS platform that is basically, it's an online third-party mail client, with the exception of we do all the automation before, and then it gets mailed out. But it gets mailed out literally through your server. So if you're on Gmail or G Suite or Google Workspace, you sign into Google just like you normally would in a browser, and Our automation does all the packaging of everybody you put in a list, and it sends them one at a time. And then we look at trying to understand, I don't know how long you want the answer to be, we look at trying to understand what do some of these other companies realize are triggers for spam, and that's getting 80,000 messages or even 10,000 messages or even 800 messages from one user in their queue all at once. So we deliberately put a 4-second pause in between ours, which is all customizable. You can change the setting if you want, but it's customizable so their queue has a chance to process it and kind of forgets that you've sent an email. That way, if you have more than one mail going to Gmail.
It's a mail robot.
Yeah.
It's a mail robot. And I put it into play this holiday to send out a promo email or two to, I think, 900 people. Not a ridiculous list. But it's remarkable because those emails look absolutely indistinguishable from being directly from me. In fact, a few clients were, they would reply with a very cordial, personal message because it came from me. And but it was incredibly effective because I knew they were getting those emails. And normally, if they came from,
can you even get the verifications?
Yeah, and I've sent email from MailChimp, not knowing if they get it. I also have a CRM that I've currently been using for booking services for 4 years and hope to be moving on from very soon, that sends email from no reply at Visita.com, right? And those damn emails get blocked by like Hotmail, and some servers they graylist or blacklist them and they never see them. And it's so frustrating when I don't know if anybody's getting my message, if they're seeing the reminders for their appointment, if they're getting the instructions on how to book the appointment, on and on and on and on. So I've just seen how incredibly valuable this is.
Thanks. It boils down really to, I think everybody has forgotten the purpose of sending the mail. And the purpose of sending email to begin with, if you're the sender, is to have the message received in the inbox and be read. Like those are your first 3 goals. And if you're doing anything as a service that isn't delivering those 3 goals, then the people are just paying for a product that isn't going to serve them well. So you have to build something that's going to do those. And people are, I think, Robert, you were mentioning, if you get you were saying like receipts or things like that. What was your question?
Well, like you can get a verification that an email has been opened. There's ways to send emails so that you find out if it's been read or not, or opened at least.
So the short answer is yes. There is a way to do that. The way that is currently implemented by many or most companies is flawed, and the data is garbage. So typically what they'll do is they'll load a clear pixel, a 1x1 pixel, and when you open the mail, it triggers that image from the server to load, and that says, oh, somebody's read the mail. And so that is one of those features I was talking about that is listed, and people love it, but it's garbage. Nobody tests products. So first of all, any product that you ever use, if it's going to store your data, put some data in it and immediately try to export your data out. Look at the export and see what you're left with. Because if you're ever going to leave that platform, this is what you're going to have to work with. No one checks that stuff. Secondly, they never check up on features and how they do. Like, is it deliverable or not? So with this pixel tracking, the problem is that we've used all of these products, and there's actually an independent article that confirms all of this, but we used all these products, opened up a Gmail address that no one had any access to but me. I'm the only one with the password. No one logged in. The Gmail address was never used. Every single product on the market reported read receipts of at least 3 or more. Now tell me how that happens. Yeah. So it comes down to Google's algorithm and their proxy servers, the way they read that mail to learn more about you to serve ads, triggers those pixel loads. So a machine that is reading your mail, yeah, right? The machine that's reading your mail to learn more about you to selling ads is actually validating this other product that it's working and it's getting read when no one ever looked at your message. So that's 50% of the pie. I don't know how much Google actually has, but I'm going to call it 50% of the pie, probably more on lower to smaller companies, Fortune 500 and smaller, that you're getting false read receipts on. Now let's look at the other end of the equation, Fortune 500 companies that are running Microsoft Exchange servers. By default, Exchange servers with no settings needed from the IT guy installing them or anything else, and even Outlook itself as a mail application doesn't load images by default. So now you're sending mail that is being read, but the pixel's not being loaded, so you're never notified of the read receipt. So the data that you're looking at is garbage 6 different ways from Sunday, and people are hanging on it like it's every breath of meaning. This guy checked me out 5 times. I'm on fire. I need to reach out to him on LinkedIn. Or I must suck. Nobody's listening to my stuff. I sent out all this mail, and it's not telling me that anybody read it. The real way to know if your email marketing is working is twofold. You're either A, going to get a genuine reply from a person, or B, that marketing message is ultimately going to cause a check to cross the desk. Those are 2 metrics you need to look at. Everything else is junk, for the most part. There are ways to actually track where a mail is being opened and who is opening it. We are currently waiting on a trademark from the U.S. Patent and Trademark Office to put that into our product. So there are things out there that will do that and do it in the right way. And I'm not going to say there's not any product out there that's not doing that right now, but the majority of what people are aware with do not operate in that fashion.
So tell me this then. I mean, we get the Pro Audio Suite gets a 60% open rate of our emails. So 3 of our mums.
So you think?
3 of our mums are opening them. 1 isn't. So how do we substantiate any of that then? And also, what does that mean? Does that mean anything then? Clearly, from what you've said, it actually means nothing really.
Well, I mean, if anything that doesn't lead to business, unless you're doing this for not business or for some other reason that whatever you're marketing for, anything that doesn't lead to your net result, it isn't working for some reason, whether it's the technology that you're using or whatever it is. So if you want more action and actionable items, there's many, many things you do. 1, use the right product that is going to get your message seen, because if nobody reads your message, no one can act on your message. And again, I'll use George as an example. He switched to using this mailer, and I asked him, and this is what I think other people should do as far as research in their own marketing. Ask questions to your clients. Like, people don't do that enough, and I can elaborate more on that later. But I literally asked George at the beginning, I said, all right, you're going to use this. I want to know how it performs. I want to know, like, how many, if you're okay with telling me, and if you don't want to give me a number, don't give me a number, but I want to know how many of these things you would normally book when you would do this marketing email. And then I want to know how many of these things you book after you use our platform. And again, if you don't want to give me a real number, then you can say, I doubled what I did, or I tripled what I did. But he was kind enough to share a real number. And it was a dramatic increase over what he did, not like even just a 50%. And he can correct me if I'm wrong, if I'm remembering the conversation, but it was vastly significant over what he would normally do. And so that tells you that a product works. What percentage, George, without giving away like actual numbers, was it double? Was it 2 times? Was it 3 times? What did it end up being? And if it sucked, say it sucked.
I can't give away numbers, man, because I don't know.
I don't want you to give away
but
numbers.
I'll be honest, it was more. It was definitely more. Cool. I mean, the fact that I was getting, I used it to help promote.
Was it significantly more or just some more?
I don't have hard information to quantify it, but I will say that the impression that I had was it was quite effective. And, I've used the traditional mailers before to promote things and promote a webinar or something with very minimal to low results. And then I was pushing a webinar I was producing produced by VoiceOver Extra, and giving a last minute push, like it's tomorrow night, everybody. And I think we added like 30 signups like in one night. Mm-hmm. And I had to think,
thank you, man.
Well, it must be working because we've already reached all these people in some form or another. I mean, we've hit everything. We've been on with socials, and John sent out his mailing list and all this stuff. And we've scoured the internet, And what did we do? We shook the tree and found 30 signups overnight. So I think it worked.
Thanks.
I mean, clearly it worked.
Thanks. I appreciate it. Thank you.
And now George is going on holidays to the Bahamas for 6 months. So.
That's right. I'm getting ready to do another webinar. That's what that means. That's exactly what that means. Yeah. You better believe it. I'm going to do another webinar soon because it was a highly successful venture. And, I'm going to be doing more because I can reach these people and I know they're going to get my messages.
And that becomes the PR positive of people on Facebook talking about the stuff that we do. And they inherently then grow, your business and your audience for you with no sales force. And you can't ask for more than that. Word of mouth advertising is still the best method of reaching somebody. And, some people may say, well, email isn't word of mouth, but if you deliver a message that looks personable, even though it's coming from you, it does. It gets better actions. I send out those emails, even service reminders to my existing hosting clients, and people will reply and be like, Brad, thank you so much for taking the time and, having the ball and knowing what to do with it. And I'm like, I got to scroll down to see what the message was because it was scheduled weeks ago. I don't even know what they're talking about. So it's great.
I was going to say, I saw a message come through, and I could have completely misunderstood everything you just said, but it's from MailChimp, and the address is actually the person, his normal mail email address.
Yeah.
So is that...
Explain that one.
Is that the right way to go, or is that also an issue?
You may think it's from the person, but the server likely knows that it doesn't. And so if you look at the headers and you actually open the email and look at those headers, then you'll see that it was sent on behalf of or a different server address and how it was routed or whatnot. But it also looks like a newsletter. And so let's talk about it from a consumer's perspective. Nobody's going to open the headers and look at stuff. Fine, you got whoever it was got through your server. I would start now to question your hosting company that you're hosting with, and maybe you need to switch to upper level because that kind of junk really shouldn't be getting through to you. But with that said, from a consumer perspective, right, looking at the message, and I don't have it in front of me, you can confirm this for me. Does it look like someone wrote that and typed it to you, or does this look like almost like I'm going to call it a newsletter or a concert poster from maybe the 80s that has some info, in it that you would see taped on a phone pole?
It's an EDM that's been sent out, but I was just curious about the address where it says reply to, and I can see the address there is his email address.
Yeah, that's right.
But
explain the difference between a reply to and, because you can set a reply to in a MailChimp system, right, where it will show a personal, but why is the reply to not really useful?
But what's the from address on that email? Can you see that?
Yeah, well, that's what I'm looking at. I can see, I'm just wondering what the gmail.com, there's a Gmail address that's kind of hidden. I'm trying to actually get in there to have a look, but I can't seem to open that area.
It's getting harder to see the headers unless you really know where to look, isn't it?
Yeah, but I just meant like in the from line, looking right at the message, like inside of whatever client you're looking at. And sometimes, Gmail tries to have more visibility of things in their real estate as far as screen space goes. So on their mobile app, for example, you have to click like 3 times to even see where something is coming from when you compose a message even. They kind of start to hide that info. But
just take a step back, Brad, to what you were saying a minute ago. Are you saying then that if we're doing a newsletter, because we've actually just started doing a Pro Audio Suite newsletter, if we do a newsletter and the mail server on your end decides that the content of that email looks like a newsletter, it may also head to the junk? Is that right?
Yeah, so it depends really on what users do as a whole. And so the very first thing we would do is if we think it's spam, we will deliver it to the user's inbox, but we identify it with 3 asterisks, the capital word spam, and 3 more asterisks to really point out to the person that this is probably something commercial related. So if it's not fraudulent, okay? So if it's your Pro Audio Suite newsletter, we let that pass, but we kind of mark it as spam, and then you can choose, no, I want to see this, and it'll no longer show up as spam, or I don't want to see this, and then it goes to the junk folder, not only for you, but the more people that decide they don't want to see it, not only for our server as a whole, but it starts to grow out to the internet, kind of like propagation happens when you make a change. It starts to spread like a virus where all of these people say they don't want to see this, and then it ends up on blacklists and real-time blacklists, or even worse, somebody on your hosting environment, because you decided to do a newsletter, and maybe you're doing it through a MailChimp or a Constant Contact or whatever, but if you're sending it from your mail server, then you may even blacklist the IP address of all the other people that are on that sending legitimate mail. So it can cause a problem in a lot of different ways. But I can't say that it's not going to work some. That's like saying there's no red cars on the internet. I can't say that. I can't quantify it. I don't have enough data to prove that, right? But what I can tell you is that in general, newsletter-based marketing versus a more direct approach of me sending one individual email to you based on the results that we've tested, your individual personalized email works better. And if you want to quantify that, I guess unscientifically, you could do a poll if you want to spend the money, but I haven't. Ask people on the street, do they prefer a personal individual connection with somebody Or do they prefer just sanitized mass customer service? And so even if you posed a question in customer service ways, right? People are going to say, I want this customized personal service. They want to feel special. They want to feel recognized. They want to feel like they're heard. So the more you do that, even in a marketing sense, it only makes sense just from what you know to be logical, like from just being a human perspective as far as what you would want yourself. Even if you just ask yourself that question, I don't think anybody's like, oh, no, you know what I want to do today? I want to be treated like a number, not like a person, somebody not hear what I say and have to get it corrected 5 times because nobody does their job right. Or I want somebody to blatantly scream at me on the corner with a yellow sign that says there's a furniture sale here. Like, that isn't going to make me go in and buy quality furniture. Nobody likes to be sold to, and all the VOs and all the ad agencies, and I think all of us know, hard sell advertising doesn't work. Like, that's why you've seen this whole push and shift in VO from conversational to millennial to now they want an intern that has never read anything, didn't even look at the copy, that has maybe gum in their mouth, read the script, and that's what they want. Because they want it to sound more everyday personal. And so why wouldn't you do that in your email marketing?
The counterpoint of that, though, isn't it, that they'll sit down in front of Facebook or LinkedIn and watch this pumped out, sanitized, designed for the world advertising on social media. Anything but personal.
Well, because that brings you something else, though. That brings you joy. It's all about dopamine release and you being nosy and wanting to see what is perceived, at least, going on in somebody else's world. So it's feeding you many different things on a different level. So instead of the personalization, rather, that somebody is getting, you're getting now something that might make you smile or chuckle or laugh, get a hit of dopamine, or allow you to read somebody's comment. And if we're being honest, most of the content that we may absorb is just so we can be snarky to somebody else, like, oh, I can't believe they did that, and gripe about them behind their back. So it is still feeding your need. It's just feeding a different need. You know, instead of treating you nicely and personally, now it's feeding a different monster, which is you feeling like you're right or you're validated because you don't believe in what they did, or in the fact that you enjoy it and it brought maybe an escape from maybe your workday and a smile with a kitten and some dopamine release. And so, like, Facebook has study after study after study, and you can Google on it how it each like and each interaction and each notification can become to where it feeds you to want more of that. And it just continues to draw you in. So they're just feeding your desires in a different way. It's still your desire.
So if they want the intern chewing gum who's never seen the script before for advertising, do you have to send out the email with bad grammar and spelling mistakes?
Are you having a go at me?
There are people that try to correct everything. I don't. I literally sit down like I'm going to type one email, and that becomes my template. Now, I will copy that at least into Microsoft Word and F7 it, just to like, oh, it wants an apostrophe, or I put the word "and" twice, because I don't want to look like a moron. But I do want to seem personal, and I will use texting shortcuts in email. Like, if that's what I would normally do, because a large percentage of people are consuming email or writing email on their mobile devices, and you see those numbers skyrocketing. So if the reality is that I am writing this, or the impression is I am writing this from my mobile phone, then wouldn't I then mimic how I write that on a mobile phone?
Sure.
So yeah, you don't need to be perfect in your grammar. You just need to be you. And all of that boils down to being personable, and authentic. And if you do those things, that's really when people start to think they're not being sold to.
And God forbid we want them to think we're selling to them.
Who was the actor that said the key to being a great actor is being authentic, and once you learn how to fake that, you've nailed it. You know, you're right. I can't remember. There's some like Bob Hope or something. I don't know. Somebody said that.
Yeah.
So, I mean, I don't think there's anything wrong with being able to get more done. And I like the basically the phrase, and I got this from Warren Buffett, that it doesn't matter if you have $1 billion, you literally can't buy more time. But he's right. Like, we all do things for money, but you can't buy more time. So all you can do is try to be more efficient with your time. and you see a progression that makes sense in history, and history repeats itself. And that progression might be that, back in the day, 20 years ago, a guy that was running a company would have a receptionist because she had to type things, and if there was an error and there was no correction tape before that, you got to retype it. It takes time, right? So you need a person to do those things. Then you see the same progression like in your doctor's office. They used to, have a recorder that would run while they talk to you, and then somebody else basically would take that dictation and they would transcribe it later. And what do you see now? You see the doctor sitting in front of a laptop typing while they talk to you. So those are ways that you're able to use, technology with some people to get more done. But it's really gotten to a point where you don't even need the person to type that stuff. Like, you can type that template, and then if you do it right, the machine can say, hey, Bob, last time we talked about notes inserted from row 3, or whatever, note column this. And it will literally go through and talk about your last conversation. It will know that that his daughter, Jenny, has a birthday coming up in 13 or 14 days, and will say, I hope your daughter has an amazing birthday instead of a Happy New Year. Like all of these decisions can be made, and you don't need an AI to do it. You can work it with a logic tree. But even if you wanted an AI to do it, you can write a SaaS application that can be put on Amazon's AWS, and they literally will give you access to Alexa. So you can have an AI without even having to write an AI. So there's so much that can be done, yet these companies, they don't even realize the possibility, and then they don't package it in the right way where they check all the boxes, cross all the T's and dot all the I's to make sure that it's executed in the right way. So a quick example of that is the more data that you're going to populate in this template, there better be data in that field that makes sense. Otherwise, you're going to look like a fool. So we have 3 to 4 different checks that we run, and you literally have to clear what we call pre-flight in our system, which will say, you're calling this field has no data. And it's going to make you look dumb. And so it will not only call it out to you, but even if you decide that you know better and to process it, it's going to skip it. And at the end of your mailing, it's going to say, we delivered 700 and we skipped this many because we told you were making a mistake and you didn't listen. 99% of the time, we let the user decide what they want to do. And if they choose to look like a fool, then we're going to let you, because we don't think we're arrogant enough to know what is right for you. So at the end of that, when we skip and we show you examples of those skips, if you still say this is correct and I want to do it, then click a button and it'll go, because you know better. But most of the time, it's somebody calling in something that's not there, or they have a comma and there's no name, and you've seen it before. It's hi, and then literally it'll say like first name in brackets. Or it'll be hi, space, comma, space, because they won't even trim the space out of their own script if you didn't have a first name. And it looks then automated, and you lose the entire goal of what you're going after.
Or it's worse because it becomes obvious that you're trying to seem genuine, and now it's obviously ingenuine. It backfires even more than the forgivable automated system that's supposed to be automated.
Right, so you have to put those checks in place. And at the end of the day, if the user says like, no, I know better, I send it anyway, well, then so be it. Our system will do it, because we don't want to tell you no. That's actually one of our mission statements, is not to tell the user no. There are systems out there, lots of them, that require fields that are not necessary. To create a new record, you don't need to require any specific field. You just need one piece of data. That's it. It doesn't have to be the email address, or it doesn't have to be the first name or the last name, but people will build applications on top of other frameworks like Laravel to speed their progress along, and they require every field to be filled in that you put in the thing. And it's like, so literally there are talent using platforms that put garbage in a field because they can't submit the record without it. Like, that just doesn't make any sense to me. I don't know what's the thought process behind this. Like, no one uses what they program. Here, that's the thing. From a programming perspective, it may make logical sense, but you should be programming your product from the user's perspective. And if you're not making it where it's intuitive for the user and easy for the user and where it makes sense and it's flexible enough for the user, then you're programming it wrong. So I tell my guys over and over and over, if I have to choose between making it harder on you to write or harder on the computer to process, I'm going to choose those over making it harder on the human every single time. So I push them to where I have an ask and it's like, I want this. And literally they're like, we don't know how to do that. And it's not that they don't know how to do that. Like, it's not on Stack Overflow. It's not on other applications. There's no samples of it. Like, no one seems to be doing it, at least that we can find any sort of example to. So we have to then kind of like write along and kind of make it up and then make it better. I can imagine that was a lot of what you guys did, like with Source Connect. There wasn't another product that maybe you could get, specifics from. You were kind of paving a way as you created something new and awesome.
We came out the same year or a year after, I'm not sure, but right around the same time as Skype. And so a lot of the stuff that we built, we made up ourselves. And there's advantages to that and disadvantages to that. We're taking very much a hybrid approach because there's a lot of really good stuff that we did industry specific that you don't carry the baggage on when you're trying to piggyback on other systems that, sure, they're great for communications, but that's what they're for. And they do that too well in your case. I definitely see what you're saying. It's all about like basically following the user's story, and then the user is going to find a way to do what they need to do. And then within that is the product. And it might be multiple stories that create that product.
Right. The thing that I find, though, is that no one makes it easy enough to give the user what they want and find their pain point. And that kind of ties us back to the beginning of what we talked about in marketing, where users will use a product and find a workaround, but they shouldn't have to find a workaround. The system, if programmed properly, can be, especially in a SaaS environment, can be flexible enough to allow the user what they want to do.
That's the pain point in their story.
Is what?
And therein lies the product.
Yes, exactly. That's right. And so they shouldn't have to do that. Now, every product is going to have that, even ours. But how can we address it? So the first 3 features that we put in weren't features for us. They weren't necessarily features for the user, but they are for the user. They were about identifying and helping build a better relationship with the consumer of our product to deliver what they want. So we literally built a genie that grants wishes in the system. You can click it and you can ask a question, report a problem, or have it do something for you, and it will literally do the work. So there's a genie in there. When you request a feature, that goes in, and this is not a new idea, it goes into what we call feature scale, where the ideas are kind of listed out and users can upvote them so we can see what specific features users want. That's not a new idea. It's out there. I believe we've done a little twist or a take on it that makes ours better. But the idea itself isn't new. And then we have WIT, which is our smart automation assistant that goes through and automates things of your data that you didn't even know. When you import your data, if there's an error in your data that we can identify, then it will kick that to repairs. A lot of systems will show you your errors, but they make you fix it right then and there before you can move on. Ours sits in a separate location, and it's all linked in and tied in or whatever. But if you have 100 repairs, you can tackle 5 of them a day, 1 a day. They can sit there. You don't have to fix them, and the system will still run. You can come back to it and do it as you want or not. So, but if we can fix it for you and identify the problem, then WIT will automatically fix it. And then WIT can do a bunch of other stuff, like maybe automatically find out where this contact is located using other internet methods to add a time zone to your record that you don't even have data on. So now we're making your data better. And we only do it when it's accurate. And that may be important because you might want to schedule that mail. And instead of using every other cheap mail system that the minute you hit send blows out everything to everybody all at once, well, if it's 8 p.m. on the East Coast on a Friday, it's 5 p.m. in California, and it's 5 or 6 hours later in Paris.
If everyone gets the same email at the same time, that's another tip-off that it's a mass mailing. So
especially if it's the multiple people in the same office, right? Like, so you email exactly. Bob and Jim and Jenny at the same office.
What's that? What's an office?
Right, exactly. Or on the same team is what I should say, where they start to chat and they're like, hey, I just got this email from Brad. And the person, well, so did I. So you have to make the system smart enough to go, all right, I want to add a rule. And so you add rules by default that make it easy for the user so they don't have to set all of this stuff up from scratch. And you allow them to take the rule off if they don't want it. But a rule that might be installed by default is I don't want to email, even if I've told you I want to email these 800 people, I don't want to email any more than one person at the same company. So if that happens, and it says, oh, well, you've already emailed Robert at Source Elements, so I'm not going to email any of, Rebecca or anyone else because Robert already has it. And so it will sit on that message for X amount of days that you define. And again, all of that is in the rules, so it's super flexible. So Robert didn't follow back up with me, but Rebecca gets hit in 17 days, and she does. So it's even better to scatter those, actually, not because you don't want to look bad, but because you're changing the frequency and the time of when you do stuff. And just like you post to social media at different days and different times, you want to catch people with your email at different days at different times. I personally don't email people on Mondays and Fridays. I don't email them early because that's when most of the spam goes out. And what do? Every day, look at your own habit. You open your laptop, you open up your email, in comes all your junk, your finger's on the delete key, and it's delete, 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 delete. Then it's like, all right, it's Monday. I got to fix all this crap from the weekend. So I only email people on Tuesday, between Tuesday and Thursday, between the hours of like maybe 11 and 2, the recipient's local time zone. And I can queue all that up when I want to. Friday night, 8 o'clock, glass of wine in hand or a scotch or a margarita. And then the system just constantly checks the rules. And when it matches something, it blows it out.
I love time shifting, replying to emails. Like I'll not using your system, but just using Gmail. I'll reply to emails after, say, 6 or 7 sometimes. And I will have it sent in the morning because I don't want the impression that I never stop working. And you know how it is when you send an email, someone will reply, and then there's an expectation of it becomes a conversation.
So like what you just said, though, becomes great feedback that I never even thought about. I always looked at it as I wanted to deliver it when it was good for them. But you hit on another great reason to use the same great tech. And that is so your email gets delivered later for your convenience so you don't have to have that perception that you are going to work those off hours. That's genius. But no one takes the time to understand from their user any of that.
Yeah, I mean, I'm subtly manipulating the situation to... well, my advantage, but also to theirs. Because if they reply to that email right away and I don't reply till tomorrow, then it's like, oh, well, George doesn't want to talk to me. It's like he replied once.
Or worst case, over the weekend or over a holiday or anything else.
But if I don't reply at all, then there's not an expectation that I'm going to be in a conversation with them. So I don't have to make a French exit or whatever. And the next morning, they get that email reply. And then they reply to it the next morning, and then I sit down with my coffee, and I have 10 answers, to all the emails I sent last night. So that's been a really important thing to me. It just better manages when people expect to hear from you, and when you're trying. I hate, as much as I hate to admit it, I still run my life out of my damn inbox. Everything just happens in that inbox. It's still the center of all my communication. Voicemail comes there, texts come there. My CRM scheduling system goes to that inbox. It's all in there. It's a zero inbox situation. If it's in there, I haven't done it yet.
Right.
So that's kind of how I run my life still.
Still, you can put every possible automation solution and check in place. And if the user, does a bad job in using it, then it still may not work. And what I mean by that is, even if you're typing this personal message, owning an audio post studio, I can tell you the messages I get from Voice Talent. And so if Voice Talent are listening to this, they might want to, pay attention at this moment. It's, hi, my name is so-and-so, and I have a professional studio at home with Source Connect. Do you have a roster of talent that I can be repped on or something along that? Well, first of all, why would I assume that you weren't a professional voice talent? I don't know why you felt the need to maybe call that out. Second of all, if you want to tell me that you're a professional LA-based voice talent, you don't need any of that in the paragraph at all. All of that can fit in your signature line. So that goes to respecting the other person's time that is going to read your message. So put your ask up front, and one way to get your ask up front is by not putting all the nonsense about you in your email at all, not after it. So in your signature line, you can put, Brad Newman, LA-based voice talent with insert fancy agency I'm with here. Source Connect, ID, boom. And so I think your Source Connect ID deserves to be in your signature line right along your web address, your phone number, your email signature, especially since COVID. It's become ubiquitous. So put it all in there. That tells me if I know what Source Connect is, then I'm going to know what you mean by that. And if I don't, then maybe I'm going to reply and ask the question. Well, guess what? Good for you. Now you've got me to reply. But nonetheless, if I see it and I don't know what it is, it sure isn't going to look bad on me. And I'm not saying you got to go including a big badge of saying you're this and you're that. Just put the text. Stay away from SC together in the ID because everybody's going to think that's Snapchat. But otherwise, and then you can make the meat of the message something meaningful. And instead of selling yourself, people love to tell you how they're right. So maybe you ask a question. And 3 years ago, that question might have been, hey, Bob, I understand you're very busy. I want to respect your time. One question. Even a one-word answer is appreciated. Do you find the work that you're casting to be more union or non-union based? Again, a one-word answer is greatly appreciated. Thanks so much. They're going to hit reply and they're going to type union, send. Like, you're going to get a higher response rate and you ask a question. Now, why is that important? You got their signature line, you got a whole bunch of other data. Maybe you've got their Twitter, their Instagram, their LinkedIn, other things that you might not otherwise know. Maybe even their cell phone number. That you will choose to use at an appropriate time and you're not going to abuse that. But if you type a bad email, it doesn't matter what system you use, it's still going to get people to just hit delete.
So if anybody wants to get hold of you, Brad, what's the best way?
So you can go to upperlevelcrm.com and you can email me or you can call me. The info is just plainly written. That's the shortest method. It's brad@upperlevelcrm.com. Or there's a phone number there too. Give a call, shoot a text, drop an email, whatever, 646-820-2029. And yes, Auto Brad will reply to your text at 2 a.m.
Nice.
Well, that was fun. Is it over?
The Pro Audio Suite recorded using Rode NTG5s and Source Connect. Edited by Andrew Peters and mixed by Voodoo Radio Imaging. With tech support from George the Tech Whittam. Don't forget to subscribe to the show and join in the conversation on our Facebook group. To leave a comment, suggest a topic, or just say g'day, drop us a note at our website, proaudiosuite.com.